Hello, my name is Alejandra Gutierrez and I'm the School Social Work Coordinator at Para los Niños.
And I'm Pamela Brintrop. I'm the school psychologist over at Para los Niños Charter Elementary and Charter Middle. Today we're going to be talking about suicide protocol and procedures. So our agenda for today, we're going to be talking about some statistics about suicide. We're going to look at risk factors. We'll look at do's and don'ts when you encounter this situation in your school. And then we'll talk about it then what happens afterwards. Just a quick trigger warning for you guys. Some of the material we're going to be talking about might be a little bit difficult to hear. If you're feeling like you want to step out, you can do that, or you can talk to someone in mental health to debrief about the training that we're having today. So our learning objectives today, we really want you to learn the statistics and the risk factors of suicide and what students are most likely to be affected. We also want to talk about what to do and what not to do when you're dealing with this situation at your school. The following information on this slide has been reported by the Center for Disease Control in 2017. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among youth aged 10 to 24. 4 out of 5 teens who attempt suicide have exhibited some kind of warning sign beforehand. In 2007, the students who have persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness, the percentage was 28.5. In 2017, that statistic went up to 31.5. The rate of Hispanic students, which is at 33.7%, who have feelings of persistent sadness or hopelessness has risen above any other cultural group. So that includes white students who are 30.2% and Black students 29.2%. And feelings described above, so feelings of hopelessness or feeling like they want to consider suicide, have risen much higher in females versus males. So for females, it's at 41.1%. versus males, which is at 21.4%. So some populations at risk to keep in mind. Native Americans are the highest cultural group that experiences suicide. The second leading cultural group is white, and the third is African American. Another group of youth that we know is at risk is LGBTQ youth, students with learning disabilities, or specific types of personalities like perfectionist personalities. Now, keep in mind that this list is not exhaustive, but it is a group of people that experience suicide at a higher rate. Some risk factors that we know students come to school already having these risk factors as a part of maybe their history or their environment. A previous suicide attempt is the most important risk factor that we know of. If a student has had an attempt beforehand, they're 8 times more likely to attempt again. Depression or presence of another mental illness or some kind of psychiatric disorder, substance use, aggression, whether it's towards adults or other peers, violence in the home, violence or chronic stress that they're experiencing in the community, history of mental illness or suicide from a close family member or someone in their family, self-mutilation, again, victim of abuse. It could be emotional abuse, sexual abuse, or physical abuse. A recent loss that's been suffered, so that may include not only the death of someone that they love, but it includes someone who may now be incarcerated, someone who has now been deported, or even for middle schoolers, something like a boyfriend or a girlfriend that they were very close to. It could also include feelings of loneliness or isolation.
So some warning signs, direct or indirect indications of death or suicide, writings, drawings, or social media posts about death or suicide. Especially in adolescents and upper elementary school, students might have drawings, make social media posts about wanting to die. Preoccupation or high interest in death, abrupt changes in personality or general mood. No longer interested in things they enjoyed doing in the past. So for example, if they were in sports or in an after-school activity and all of a sudden they're not interested in that, that could be a warning sign. Increased irritability or aggressiveness, making final arrangements, like for example, giving things away that they enjoyed, favorite sweater, favorite objects. Decline in academic performance. So for example, if they were an AB student and all of a sudden they're like a D or F student. Reckless behaviors such as substance use or cutting class, things like that. A recent loss, either somebody passing away, being incarcerated, or deported. Feelings of rejection, solitude, or lack of support, whether it's real or perceived. So they could have support of family and friends, but if they perceive it, that could also be a warning sign. So do's, call for support as soon as possible. Please do not wait. Most likely, the person that will be responding is your administrator or your supervisor. So please make sure that you reach out to them as soon as possible. You can also reach out to your school psychologist, social work coordinator, case manager, counselor for support. If nobody else is available, there is an attached handout that you can include mental health resources and support from Para los Niños. Please try your best to remain as calm as possible, especially when it is dealing with a crisis situation. Try to empathize with the student and show concern and care. And it's okay to ask direct questions like, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Do you want to die? Make sure that you also know your limits as well. So you do not want to do a whole investigation, but just ask enough information to know whether or not the student is safe. It's okay to emphasize alternatives. For example, we want you to live and we want to get you some support. Especially for younger grades, you might want to clarify an understanding of death, because sometimes they might say things like, oh, I want to die, or I want to sleep, and they might not be clear. So it's okay to get clarification, especially from younger students. And always remember to please practice self-care and debrief for further support if needed. Don'ts. Please do not pass judgment on anything shared with you. Do not act shocked or upset. It is important to remain calm. Do not try to take away a weapon or possibly a dangerous object from the student. Always call your supervisor for support. Do not minimize the problem. Do not promise total confidentiality. So in our work, it is important to know that we are mandated reporters. So anything that has to do with danger to self or to others, we must report. So we can never promise students complete confidentiality. Do not argue against suicide. If a student admits to you that they want to die by suicide, do not try to argue against it, but do offer support. And finally, do not take responsibility for the students' lives. Our students carry a lot of diverse experiences and may have experienced a lot of trauma, but taking that responsibility onto yourself can be more harmful than helpful in this situation. Then what? So a crisis member will conduct a suicide assessment after you contact your supervisor. Immediate steps will be determined as a result of this risk assessment. If the risk is low, the crisis member will return the student to class and may quickly debrief you. However, if the risk is moderate or high, the student will not return to class, and further steps will be communicated as soon as possible about possible meetings and next steps that may be happening. Also, please always make sure to connect with your supervisor and fill out an integrative service referral and return it to your case manager or family specialist. What to do if it is after school hours? For example, you find something, a drawing or a writing that in a student's notebook, and it's in the weekend. What can you do? So you definitely want to call your administrator or supervisor as soon as possible to contact them. You can also, if you have access to the student's information, you can call for what's called a safety or well-being check to the LAUSD school police at the number listed below. And you can just explain what you know. And if it has to do with any danger that something's happening to them, you could always make a DCFS report as well. If you have any questions or are unclear about anything, you can feel free to email us at the emails below.